Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Hallmarkies podcast. And we're really excited today. We have another author, we have a returning author with us. We have Jenny Hale here. This is your fifth time on the podcast. Can you believe it?
No, fifth time.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Well, thanks for having me
Yes.
again.
Yeah. I mean, I was thinking of introducing you as author slash publishing mogul, but but because what you're doing over there, Harpeth Road, is so impressive.
Thank you so much. It's
Yeah.
just been, just following that creative bug is what it
Yeah.
really is. But
It's
yeah.
very exciting. I mean, I read a bunch of the books and I've enjoyed all of them, and it's just exciting what you're doing over there.
Yay, thank you. Well,
Yeah.
I definitely think that writing books is a creative process, but it's surprising how creative the other side of it is as well.
Yeah.
And that's been the most fun is just digging into that side of the creative.
hmm Yeah. And it must be rewarding since you are an author, like being able to fellowship new authors yourself must be really satisfying.
Yeah, I was a school teacher for years and 18 years. So
hmm
service and instruction and being a lifelong learner is sort of who I am at the core anyway. And I did find that difficult when I quit teaching and I started writing full time. I remember the first day I laid in the middle of my living room floor and I thought, what am I supposed to do with this day? What do I do with this?
Yeah.
Um, and so and I felt that absence of people as I became a full-time author. And I think that publishing is just a very easy segue into the next step for me by helping all the other
Mm.
authors.
Yeah, that is such a great feeling when, especially if you haven't been happy in your work. And I know when I quit my job this way back in 2007, and that was one of the best days of my whole life. And then it just being like, oh my gosh, I'm free. I'm free to just do whatever I want.
I know,
That
like
is
do
the
whatever.
best. The
I
best.
know. I know it
Yeah.
was kind of fun, at the beginning because I would, call up my other teacher friends and be like, I can get you Starbucks. I can
Yeah. Yeah.
sneak it in,
Right.
it's not, it's the
Get
little
you
things like
Starbucks.
going,
Yeah.
being able to get in your car and drive during the day.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you've had an incredible year with Harpeth Road this year. I don't know if you kept track of how many books y'all published this year, but it's been pretty exciting.
Yeah, I mean, I never had a number for
Mm,
how many, and I still don't. I literally take the books that I read and think I can absolutely market this.
hmm
And then I make sure that the writing is top notch, and then we just go for it. And I have had to cap it. So right now, because we're so small still, and I'm heading up most of the creative, I have brought on some other people to help me with things, but we've capped it at like about 6 books a season right now. Just
hmm
to make sure that we still have enough manpower for
Yeah.
everybody.
Well,
But we
if you need
grow.
someone to go through the slush pile, just let me know because I'm a
Oh,
very,
thank
very
you.
fast reader and I know my romance novels very well.
Oh, thank
But
you.
yeah.
I
So,
know
yeah.
that's the hardest part. I've stopped. I used to give a personal rejection to every person with suggestions and things like that, and I just can't.
Yeah. That
And I
makes
hate
sense.
that because I sat on the other end of that rejection pile,
Right.
and
Yeah.
so I know when I just sometimes I put it on our website that I just won't respond if unless we're interested. So
Right.
there are people just hanging out there like, is it ever coming?
hmm
Isn't my favorite, but
Yeah. I mean, that makes sense. So what would be your advice for someone who really wants to publish? What would be your biggest advice? Someone who wants to publish with you.
um, I mean, there's lots of little sprinkles of advice. The very first thing is just to send us your best writing. Don't assume, oh, this is going to be edited because I write books that I think when I'm done, I mean, I'm on what book? I think I'm starting book 28 now. And I write books and think, okay, I could probably just send this right on. We'll just give it a copy edit. And sure enough, there's things in that book that need to be edited. I mean, they just need to be. And that's even with all the experience of writing that I have. So I think the main thing is just get it as clean as it can be, because when we have our 4 edits, I mean, our developmental edits, we only have enough time for one pass on developmental edits. So we need to make sure that we can get it all in that. And then we go to line edits and copy edits and proofread. So I think just obviously the very best thing you can do is have a fabulous concept, pitch it really well. And by pitching it well, it just means how would you want it to sound if you wanted someone to read it? How would you get us to entice us to want to read it?
Mm-hmm.
And then we have everything in place to help authors after that.
Mm-hmm.
At the end of
Now
the day,
you have done books in historical romance, you've done contemporary, you've done holiday, you've done different genres. But what is it for you that you think sticks out? Do you see a trend or a theme in Harpeth Road books that's kind of through all of them?
yes, I mean the overarching theme is just heartwarming romance. We want that sort of warm fuzzy, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And I've
Yeah.
actually had to turn down some pretty awesome rom-coms just because they weren't quite the right fit. They were so
Mm-hmm.
good, but they were edgier than what we would look for. And at the end of the day, it's about finding the readership for those books. And we have to provide books that our readership is going to accept and want to read. So
Yeah.
while that rom-com is amazing, I would read it. I loved it, and there are more than one, but you have to say, okay, but will our readers say this is why we go to Harpeth Road? This is what we want from Harpeth Road. And eventually, I'm sure we can expand into some different lines and build our readership. But right now, as a small publisher, we're focused solely on books that we know our readership would embrace, because that's what it's all about. Word of mouth. People read it, they love it, they tell
Yeah.
their friends.
Do you only do clean like closed door or what's your standard as far as that goes?
At this point, yes, it
Yeah.
tends to be closed door clean, only because it's interesting. As a school teacher, every year I would get a new group of students, and that group of students in that class had its own collective personality. I had some classes that were so talkative that I had to try to figure out how do we get them to get out this energy in a way that they can still learn. And then I had other classes that I was pulling at them to give me one answer. They were all so quiet. And it just
Mm.
depends on the collective personality of the group. So as we build Harpeth Road, there are things that I'm having to shift because of the collective personality of our readers.
Mm.
So there are things that I would originally say, oh yeah, we'll take this. And then as our readers respond to it, I have to change how what I take, because again, it's about reaching your readers. And so whatever the readers are that are gravitating to Harpeth Road, whatever type of reader that is, that's who we want to build stories for, because they're the ones that are going to shout it from the rooftops.
Is it hard to know I mean, it's easy in a class, but I just feel like as a podcast, it feels like such a crapshoot to me most of the time. I'm always just like, I think this episode will do really well, and then and then I'll put out something that I think is fine and entertain. I try to make everything I do entertaining, but one that I don't think will get that much, and then it blows up and it does super well. And I don't know, I just feel like it's so hard to gain a handle on what people want.
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly what we do. You just test every
Mm,
book, every cover, every social media post, everything is a test. And we take those tests and compare them to our analytics. So when you look at who is your audience and then what are they responding to? And then it comes down on top of all that, you have layers to it. Because then there's like, well, what time did I post that? Well, what time of year was it that that book came out? You've got to really kind of dig even deeper to build a story. And I'm just enough of a nut that I'll analyze things to death, to the
yeah.
point that I'm like, is this even even an analysis of anything, you know. But if I start to see trends, then I can say, okay, you know, I
Yeah.
think this is the issue. Um, or this is what made this great, you know.
Yeah.
And then we
Ho, ho, ho. We'd like to take a second and thank our sponsor for this episode of the podcast. It's the Hallmarkies Patreon.
Do you love Hallmarkies podcasts, especially at Christmas?
Do you enjoy the holiday previews, recaps, interviews, and bonus episodes?
If the answer is yes, please consider supporting the Hallmarkies Patreon. We need your help to do what we do both during the Christmas season and all year round.
But not only do you help a podcast led by strong, independent women by becoming a Patreon, you get to become a part of the Hallmarkies family.
Starting at only $2 a month as a patron, you will have access to our Facebook Patreon group where we talk about the movies, shows, and more all year.
We also have many monthly patron watch-alongs with guests like Lacey Chabert, Natalie Hall, Paul Campbell, Mary Lou Henner, and more, giving their behind-the-scenes details of their films.
As a patron, you also have the chance to provide input into the podcast and even join us at different tiers.
So this Christmas season, spread some cheer to the Hallmarkies Patreon and become a member today. You won't regret it.
Go to patreon.com/Hallmarkies to learn more.
That's patreon.com/Hallmarkies.
I was looking at the Harpeth Road website and I had a couple questions. When you said you have women's fiction, contemporary romance, historical romance, and southern fiction. What does that mean? Southern fiction. I mean, obviously set in the South,
Southern
but
fiction,
is it
yeah, I
just
mean,
branch
being
of
a
romance?
Nashville-based publisher,
Mm,
yeah, I just wanted, I wanted a small section to just tell people, hey, don't forget, if you write those really Southern US stories that are like set in the South, you got front porch sitting and iced tea drinking and barefoot porch swings, we're your people, you know. And some of that is just an ode to Nashville, but I write a little bit of that as well. Some of my books could fall into the Southern fiction category.
okay.
It's hard with beach reads because most of them are set in like Florida, but and Florida's in the South. But in terms of those sort of really nitty gritty, like The Memory Keeper could have been a Southern romance because it's
Okay.
set in Franklin, Tennessee, and it's very sort of down home and encompasses that Southern culture, that Southern
Mm.
US culture. So I specifically plucked it out of the regular genres
Yeah.
to let people know we were there.
Do you find it's hard to find the quality women's fiction? I feel like that's a tough genre to narrow down.
Yeah,
And
and we specifically do romantic women's fiction, which means you have to have the sisters, but then somebody has to fall in love, you know. So
right.
it's specific, and I can't say that I get a whole lot of specific women's fiction submissions. You know, usually
Mm,
people just sort of blanket it as romance because they don't really know a lot of them. They're just like, here, you figure that out. But I do know that generally my summer books tend to be categorized in the women's fiction category. So, and I think too, because some of my summer books are more like sister relationship, family relationship based. And then they have the romance element to them. So
well,
it's
sometimes I think the women's
slope.
fiction is just a place to put books that are sad. Like I feel like they're usually kind of like you can't include them in romance because romances have to have a happy ending. So we just put it in women's fiction.
Yeah, well, I think especially for sad books, that would be
Yeah.
where they would put them, right?
Yeah.
So women's fiction, I think you can have a happy ending with women's fiction, but I see women's fiction as more of um, a family dynamic or like best friends when
Mhm.
the main characters aren't the romance. When the
Mm,
main characters are sisters or they're
mm,
some kind of family drama or, you know, whatever the issue might be. But then they do also have a romance happening. That would be considered, in my opinion, women's fiction. But
yeah.
it's a slippery slope. And if you did have a sad book or a book that just sort of like didn't fit the romance genre, you could stick it in women's
Yeah.
fiction as
That's what I
well.
feel. I'm like,
Um,
okay, great. It's women's fiction. Get out the tissues. Gonna need them.
Yeah, and I mean, some people love it. My husband loves watching movies that make everyone cry, and I'm like, I can't deal with that because I will internalize that and just sob
Yeah.
all night long. So
Yeah.
for me, it's really difficult. But there are people, I am certain there is a collective group of people who want to read those
Well, yeah, I mean,
heart-wrenching.
look at Colleen Hoover. I mean, she's just killing it with these sad books. I
Yeah.
yeah, it's very tough to nail. I think that kind of romantic weepy, for lack of a better word. It's tough to do, but it can be done well. It can be good. I mean,
Yeah.
obviously Nicholas Sparks, then that's his whole thing.
Yeah. Well,
So
and the Magic of Sea Glass was categorized as women's fiction, and it's
mm,
basically the main plot is her sort of managing her grief over the death of her fiance. And so
mm,
that's the forefront, which there's your sad, there's your weepy, but there is a romance that buds
yeah.
with, so that one, that's an example of a Harpeth Road
Yeah.
women's fiction novel.
Well, I'm really curious also on your website. You said characters in our books are either strong characters or they find their strength along the way. So, what to you is a strong character? Is it a big, bold character? Can somebody be timid and still be strong? What's your in your mind makes for a strong character?
I think a strong character is someone who either knows who they are or learns who they are along the way. I specifically, in terms of romance, am thinking of the opposite of that would be those romances where the knight sweeps her off her feet and saves her or saves the day. We prefer to have the heroine save her own day in that way. And with, I think with really strong internal conflict, she can go through her things and learn from the hero. But ultimately, I wanted a strong woman's intuition, a strong character. She can be a very timid character and still know exactly who she is and what she will tolerate and what she can manage. And she might
Yeah.
have to learn that along the way, but that's what I'm thinking in terms of a strong character.
Mm. Yeah, because like the kick butt female has become kind of a cliche as well
Mhm.
in the last little while. And so you want your character to still be vulnerable. And obviously, to fall in love takes vulnerability. So, yeah, it's interesting what people think of as a strong character.
Yeah, you've got me. Now I might go back into my website and add a little more to it. This is what we really mean.
I was also curious on your website, you said that you prioritize strong author education. What does that mean?
Yeah,
Like,
well, so, I was a school teacher. I didn't
mhm.
even know what a publisher did when I started in this business. And I think that I have a general sense of marketing comes very easily for me. PR, marketing, that comes very easily for me. So, but for many people, it doesn't. And one thing I noticed is that as I grew in my platform and being an author, there were things that I learned along the way that later, when I saw other authors doing things, I thought, oh, I wish that if they just did this, their life would be easier.
Yeah.
And so, as a former educator, one of the things that I did from the get-go, and it's just ballooned into this massive platform now, is I have a password-protected author portal where my authors at Harpeth Road can go in, and there are lessons on
Oh, wow.
everything. I saved my beginning, middle, and end of career bios so they could see how do you construct a bio when you don't have any accolades? How do you construct a bio when you have just a few? And then how do you not overwhelm people when you have a whole bunch? And
Mhm.
so there's everything you'd ever want to know about platform, edits, bio, your profile pictures, marketing. I have a whole reading list of books to read that are great about writing. I mean, it just goes on and on and on. It's just massive. And every probably month I'm adding to it. So the goal is to build the author's understanding. And I'm very transparent when I say, like, well, we do this because here's the reason why, so that they are with me in the journey and they understand that the publisher's job isn't to make your life miserable, promise. And nobody's out to get you in social media. It's how you present yourself and how you manage your platforms that will make you a success. So it's the teacher side of me, but I just wanted to provide information for people. So if you are an author with us, you'd get full access to it. And
That's
you can
great.
anytime
Well,
you
I mean,
want.
it makes sense for you because happy authors are going to make better books, and then you're going to sell more books, and then I mean, it's just a cycle.
That's the goal. The goal is to provide the most creative environment for the author, because that's where the author is going to be their best. I am my best when I am in an area where I can be 100% creative and not stress about anything else. And so that's sort of, what we were hoping for with the portal, is that we can take some of that off of them, so that they understand, oh, well, this is why this happens. Well,
that's cool.
Yeah.
We'd like to take a second to thank our sponsor for this episode of the podcast. It's the good folks at Harpeth Road Press and Lindsay Detweiler and her new book, The Holiday Bake Off. Nothing can stop Lucy Carter from chasing her dreams until her boyfriend drops the bomb and tells her he's leaving her for someone else. Complicating things, she gets a phone call from her ailing grandmother asking her to return to the small town of Star Creek to help out with her beloved bakery. In the name of family loyalty, Lucy is forced to leave her aspirations behind, but the bakery's newest employee, an expert baker, handsome Will Westerly, might get in the way of her holiday. To get all of your holiday sweets reading in, make sure you check out The Holiday Bake Off by Lindsay Detweiler. You can get it wherever you purchase your holiday books or online and use the affiliate link below. It's The Holiday Bake Off by Lindsay Detweiler. We know you'll love it. Let's talk about the Noel Bridge. This is your new book. Very exciting. Congratulations. And why don't you tell the audience a little bit about the book, what they can expect?
So the Noel Bridge is about a girl named Alicia Silver. This is the second book I did where she's lost her fiance. I did one summer book, The Magic of Sea Glass, which I mentioned. She had lost her fiance. And then this one just lended itself. I could have done a breakup at the beginning, but I thought I need someone that's just in such a place emotionally that when they're given the opportunity to find miracles at a little clapboard bridge, that they would do it. They would take the chance and do it. And, I don't know anybody. Well, if we write them, our strong characters we mentioned, I don't know anybody who would travel across country to a little clapboard bridge if they broke up with their boyfriend or whatever. So, I mean, maybe they would, but I thought, let's make her desperate, and then so the bridge is actually in her old hometown. She's in Savannah in an apartment or a condo that she and her fiance bought together. They were going to move in after they got married. She had her things already in there and was trying to make it a home, and he was killed in a car wreck. And this is her first Christmas by herself in this condo where she was going to spend her life with him. So she's really sort of struggling. She's a nurse, and they've let her off for the holidays. They were like, I can tell you're struggling. Like, you need to figure out what to do. You can't be your best self unless you get yourself together. And she sees a newscast. There's a news program on about that bridge in her town that she left as a child. And she said, it catches her eye because she remembers the bridge. And it's just news story after news story of people saying, well, this miracle happened, or this happened, or I found my cat when I couldn't find my cat, and I went to the bridge and it was there, And so she goes to the bridge because she can't get through the holiday without hearing from her past fiance. She just wants to know what to do. What is she supposed to do? So she drops everything and heads to her small town. And when she gets to the small town, which is a fictional town named Noel. So the Noel Bridge is kind of like, the Nashville Bridge or something, but it has a double meaning with Christmas. But when she gets to the bridge, um, she actually gets to the town that night and meets up with a new owner of a diner. The diner's closing. She's starving. It's after her late flight that she caught on a whim. And he lets her in, and he is also struggling. And it comes out later under the bridge that he can't find his father. His father is suffering from early onset dementia, or Alzheimer's, and he cannot be found. And they are overwhelmed because there's a massive snowstorm in the Smoky Mountains where they are. And so the story is sort of their path together and on their own to discover, like, what are their answers in life, and is the bridge something that will really help them, or is the bridge just a place where people can find their faith, when they're sort of together? And so that's the big question, is, does the bridge actually do anything, or is it just something that people can go to? It's like a tangible place, like a church, you go and you're in a place, and that place becomes something greater while you're there in that spirit.
Yeah. Is there real magic and miracles, or do you just manifest the things that you need in life by kind of, there is a like a karma kind of a thing that you manifest, good and bad, depending on the energy you put out into the world.
Or is your faith more important? In faith, whatever you believe your faith to be, is your faith more important than the place? Like you're saying, is it something else? And we're just saying, oh, it's happening at the bridge because that's where you're putting your faith out there. That's where you're putting, those vibes.
So how did you get this idea for these bridges and the whole concept of the Wishing Bridge?
Well, it's funny. I was just having this conversation with someone else, and I was like, it's not like this stunning revelation. I was actually in Indianapolis at my distributor's office. They distribute our trade titles for Harpeth Road, and we were having a conversation about books and what sells books. And years ago, he worked in the romance industry, and he said, oh, well, like, covered bridges are good. And he was just rattling off some things. And right then I was like, oh, covered bridges. I haven't done a book with covered bridge on it. That would be cool. And so by the time I got back to Nashville from Indianapolis, I already had the seed of the Noel Bridge in my head. And then I just had to go write it. But it was just something that simple, where he was like, oh, bridges are good on covers. It's like, I don't know.
That's funny.
The bridge on the cover.
Nice. It reminds me when we were talking with Terry. She was telling us about her baby book, and she's like, there was no baby in the book. It's funny, but that's cool. And so is Noel, is that based on any particular place or just in general?
No, I mean, there are so many lovely little tiny towns in the Smoky Mountains. It could be any of them. I just created a town in my head of what I wanted in the Smoky Mountains, but I wanted that sort of sweeping valleys and the mountains and that sort of snowy aspect, because I just felt like it lended itself to the Noel Bridge. It would just be a perfect spot to have a little covered bridge out there. But yeah, I mean, I've been through lots of little towns, and I'm always taking pictures of things and tucking them away, but this one's just completely fake.
When growing up in Nashville, you must have spent a lot of time in the Smoky Mountains.
I actually, funny enough, I've only lived here for about 8 years.
Oh, okay.
I am from Virginia. I'm actually but we would always go to the mountain. There's mountains in Virginia. We would always
Appalachians,
go, and Skyline Drive and all the good stuff. So I'm from outside Richmond, Virginia, but we did go to the mountains quite a bit. I mean, in Virginia, we still did. And then in Nashville, living in Nashville, we still go, to up, there's like the whole Gatlinburg area and done all that. And and been
This is
to.
National Park, right? Smoky Mountain National Park.
Mhm,
Yeah,
mhm.
I've
And
never
just
been.
recently, well, this was totally separate and not even related, but not even near the Smoky Mountains. But just recently, we went out to Wyoming and Montana, and got to see that area. And so,
Mm-hmm.
any of those little lodgy, sort of small, you can pick
Mm-hmm.
those up and move them across the country and stick them in the Smoky Mountains in your head.
Mm-hmm.
But I love those areas, and they're just so lovely and small, and people all know each other, and there's a sort of work off the land kind of feel when you're there, lots of hiking and biking and
Mm-hmm.
packed lunches, and
Yeah,
that's kind of a good vibe to have for a
nice. Was it tricky writing Alicia's arc? Because here she's basically a widow, his fiance, but she's basically a widow, but it's a romantic arc for her. Was that tricky?
Yeah, I mean, I think the hardest part with those arcs is getting them to the romance headspace in the time of the novel. So, like, you've got to really pay attention to how long is this novel lasting, because you can't have them like the novel can't be like a week long because there's no way they'd go from grief to romance in a week. You've got to
Right.
like stretch it out. So there's a whole lot of internal dialogue that goes on with her sort of wrestling with her thoughts and wrestling with herself and what is her goal and what is she supposed to do, and that I love writing that sort of tension between the needing to feel emotion because I'm a super emotional person. So a lot of times I can drown myself in certain emotions, but how do you get past them? Like, how do you and still have them? I mean, you've got to say, I'm going to still be sad for this person, and that's a reality. But I can't live in that sadness and never move. But the moving is the hardest part because you don't want to. You're sad. So that wrestle is so much fun to explore. And how do they manage it? So as they're in these plot points and they're sitting in diners or hiking or whatever they're doing, they're enveloped in that and in what they're dealing with. That's fun to write.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that would be good. I mean, is it tricky also to write Leo and make him the right kind of romantic lead for this kind of story when you have a character that's grieving
Yes
that he's
and
with?
no. Yes and no. I tend to, it's probably because I mean, I married one, but I tend to like the guys that are sort of quietly confident, that are
Mm-hmm.
quietly wrestling with their own things, but not losing their minds. And so most of my leads are that because it's just so natural for me if I'm writing both characters. One, I know that kind of guy. Like I said, I married him, but I also have I enjoy the dynamic between whatever the girl is and handling a guy because we all know guys don't generally sit around and chat like women do. It's not
Mm-hmm.
the same. Even when they are chatty, it's a different kind of chatty. So that's always fun for me. So yes and no. It's hard in that how do you get his point across and get her to relate to him, on the page, because it's if it's quiet and it's all internal really at that point.
Mm.
But it's easy in that it's always the guy is always the same kind of guy in my books because I just get it. That's the kind of, you know what I mean? Like the overbearing, like really confident ones, I struggle with those because I'm like, I don't know how to write that because I would shrink back from that personally.
Mm. Yeah. Well, it becomes like overwhelming. I mean, you can do the enemies to lovers, storyline, but it's tough, man. It's very tough to pull off,
Yeah, I've done it a
you
few
know.
times and it's harder than the quiet. I do the brooding, quiet
Yeah.
ones much better.
Oh, I do love the brooding. I don't know if you have gotten a chance to read Better Than the Movies, Wayland Painter. Oh,
I'm gonna write that down.
she just released the sequel, and it wasn't quite as good, but it was still solid. And her lead in that is just the best. He's
the
named Wes.
title sounds
Oh,
amazing.
it's it's my favorite book of the last like 5 years. I
Mm.
loved Better Than the Movies, and I mean it's a huge hit, so I'm not the only one. But yeah, I love that like kind of brooding but sweet and like surprisingly thoughtful guy.
Yes, yes, the ones that
Romance.
just come out of nowhere,
Yeah.
like,
It's
oh gosh.
it's kind of like Luke on Gilmore Girls. I feel like that's kind of a if you're looking for an archetype of that kind of guy,
Mhm.
you know. Yeah, yeah.
And like I said, if you actually look at, I mean, my early books were sort of more of the alpha male, but they were still kind of quiet and brooding. But they were
Hmm.
more of that like millionaire kind of guy,
Yeah. Yeah.
really strong, confident, but like quiet. They were so quiet and still
Hmm.
sort of. And I'm an extrovert, but my husband's an introvert. So I think the
Yeah.
two. I feel like that's a good yin and yang, for two people. I was just telling
Hmm.
somebody the other day, I was saying when people come to the door, my husband's like, people at the door. And I'm like, who is it? Like I see in like chat, and I think
Hmm.
those two dynamics are good
Yeah.
together.
Yeah. Was it hard to bring Christmas into the story? Because it's not like the bones of it aren't inherently holiday in it. You could have the same story any time of the year. So, like, then going in and kind of obviously you have the town named Noel, but kind of adding those Christmas elements, was that hard?
I don't think so. I mean, for me, all of my stories could be at any time of year, and then you just plop them down in whatever season you're in. So, when you're rounding the corner, you might round the Christmas tree versus the corner. And there are some little things you can tuck in there and, add in some Christmas programs and whatever they're doing to like move the plot forward. But really, for me, and some of that could be too, just because I've written a Christmas book and a summer book every year. So I've done just years and years of them.
Mm,
But I tend to just, I have stories sometimes in my head that I think, okay, do I want this one in the summer or do I want this one in the winter? And I can put it anywhere I want and just build. It's like building a set as a TV person. You would build that set and then the story unfolds within that set. So the story isn't necessarily Christmas, but sometimes the sentiment could be like with the
mm.
Noel Bridge. You've got the sentiment of this magical bridge that's very Christmas-like to be magical and think in those terms. But yeah,
When you're writing, do you think about what Hallmark actor you would want to play, like Leo and Alicia in this?
I don't. And one of the things that I feel like it's, I mean, I'm kind of this overarching creative, right? Like I write books, but that just happened to be the first thing that I did creatively that made me money that I started to do, right? And then I just got really good at it and I kept doing it. I also take pictures and I do graphic design and I paint and I do all these other things. I decorate cakes and I put floral arrangements together and I do all kinds of things, but the writing just kind of stuck. So when Hallmark is making movies, the creative process of that is so interesting to me that I almost want to see who they pick
Mm,
because I don't have somebody in mind when I create this character that becomes a person in my head, this like person, and then it's very difficult for me to take that person that has a full look to them, a backstory, everything, and then apply an actor to them. It's very hard, but it's super fun to see like a production company do it
mm,
when they act on, because then I'm
that
like,
makes sense.
see that, I could see how
Hmm.
that would fit that role. And
Yeah.
it's the creative aspect of it that I enjoy. So I don't stress out when they make changes to the book for the movie. It's all so interesting because I want to see, I mean, Hallmark obviously knows their audience, right? And so they make choices based on the same way I make choices based on my readership. They make choices. So to see what they tweak and change and keep and what they can get done before the commercial break and all the things, that's so much fun.
Were you annoyed at all that they had no mistletoe kisses in mistletoe?
I didn't even think
Like
about
what?
that.
They didn't have a single one.
That's
False
hilarious.
advertising.
never even thought about that. That's so
Never
funny.
did? Really?
Oh.
That's hilarious. Well, I think if I were casting it, the Noel Bridge, I think I would have Michael Rady playing Leo. Because I think that he could do the tender moments, he can do the sassy moments, he can do the grumbling, he can do the. I just feel like he's an all around good actor, and he would be good. And then I think for Alicia, you gotta have Kimberly Susted because
That would be
she's the best at those like emotional, like I'm tearing up. I think she would be really good. I don't want to leave. I don't want to leave the bridge, whatever. So yeah, I think that would be a good combo. We haven't seen them together in a movie, so why not?
would be good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm game. I'm
So
game.
you're welcome, Hallmark.
I know, right? We'll send them our names.
Yeah.
So this is what we're
Go.
thinking. We could just create a
Yeah.
treatment. Just be like, here.
We'd like to take a second and thank our sponsor for this episode of the podcast. It's the Hallmarkies merch store.
Are you looking for that perfect gift for the postable, Hardy, or Hallmarky in your life?
What about getting that t-shirt or hoodie that will help you stand out at your next holiday party?
Now is the time to check out the Hallmarkies merch store.
Full of festive designs by artists like Jessica Miller, Carrie from Hallmark Comics, and more.
You can even have more than just shirts, but totes, cell phone cases, notebooks, mugs, and more.
And it isn't just Hallmark. We have designs for Anna Green Gables, Man from Snowy River, The Nanny, and more.
Every purchase at the merch store goes to help support the podcast and allows us to make the great content you know and love.
There are frequent sales, so go to tpublic.com/stores/Hallmarkies or see the link in the description.
That's tpublic.com/stores/Hallmarkies.
Well, since you've been on our show a number of times, I was looking for what we could do for our like questions that we do at the end or rapid fire. So I found this Christmas tag, this group of questions. So let's just see how this goes. You're testing it out. So the first question is, what is your favorite Christmas movie?
It depends on my mood. I have several. I'll be quick though. Let's say if I have to pick one, Home Alone.
Yeah.
That
And I
be
would
my-
say, I'm not even kidding, 80% of people I interview say Home Alone. It is by far
good.
the most popular answer, which I think is
I
interesting.
mean, I like National Lampoon's
It's
Christmas
so good.
Vacation. I like, there's one, was it Four Christmases or something with Reese
Yeah.
Witherspoon?
Yes.
I watched that. It's got some parts in it that, but it's pretty funny.
Yeah. Yeah. So do you open your presents on Christmas Eve or Christmas morning?
Christmas morning. When I was a kid, we were allowed to choose one to open the
Yeah.
night before because we were obnoxious and open one. But during, I don't know, I can't even remember if I told my kids they could do that. I don't think I ever did. I think we've always done all of them on Christmas morning.
Mm-hmm.
Christmas morning is
Yeah.
our time. And it's done in like 30 minutes.
Yeah.
It takes us months to prepare it.
Yeah. Well, yeah, so I was gonna say, do you just all for it, all opening presents? I know some people, they will do like individuals. I don't know, like that would take forever.
No, we do individuals and still we're done in 30 minutes. I don't know. It's just like a bulldozer, like, and then like,
yeah.
and I'm trying to like, I'm taking pictures and I'm like, oh, do you like that sweater? I saw it in blue, but I thought you might want green, and they're like,
Yeah.
my boys are like picking the next present. Like, that's for you.
One of my favorite memories. So I have siblings that are a lot younger than me, and I have a brother that's 16 years younger than me. And and one year my mom would make these adorable little dolls. They were so cute, and she'd made one for my sister, who's 4 years older than my brother. She'd made one for my sister, and he really liked it. And so she's like, "Oh, this will be fun. I'll make him a doll." And she made him a boy doll, but he plays with all different kinds of dolls. And anyway, she makes him this doll, and it's like the big present, waiting. And he was like 4, 5, something like that. And he was just not into it. He was like, I want to open my one present. I just want to play with that. I don't want to open any of your others' presents. And so we were like kind of pushing, oh, come on, open this. And he was getting more and more annoyed. And so we finally get to the doll, the big present, and he opens it up. He takes that and he like threw it across the room. was like,
Oh no.
which he ended up loving the doll, but he was just annoyed with us. It was so funny.
That's the best.
Yeah.
I know we have to watch out because sometimes I'm famous for wrapping 2 or 3 things that all go together. So like we might wrap up like a game that goes with like a Xbox or you know what I mean? Like
Oh,
2
yeah.
and I'll wrap them separately. And so we're like, don't open that one because you'll open the game before you get the game console or whatever it is.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
and I also it tortured my kids as when they were little. I put all the name tags of the presents on the back of the present so they can't see whose they are until we dig them out from under the tree. And that used to drive them crazy. They'd be like, who's this?
Yeah. Yeah. Trying to guess what's inside and everything. We totally would play that game. That's funny. So, what is your favorite festive food? You can have a tongue twister with that. Favorite festive food.
Favorite festive food? Gosh, I think anything with cheese in it. I don't know. I love I mean, you can put cheese on anything, but
Yeah.
we like to do like those breakfast casseroles. We'll prepare those and then just bake them while we're undoing our presents so that we can eat the casseroles in the morning. So like just those warm, cuddly kind of foods. I love all the like if you're having people over, you know how you have those boards at Christmas that have like the crackers and the salami,
Yeah.
cheese. I always love finger foods more than regular like foods. If I have my choice, I'll just put a few little crackers and some cheese.
Oh, I'm with you there. I will. I always, if somebody can have a toothpick through it, it's a great food. If you can eat it on a stick.
Yes, or like the grape jelly meatballs, you know those that you make it with like grape jelly and like something else.
So
Oh,
good.
that's the best. Yeah.
Yeah, if you ever seen the movie Mermaids with Cher, Winona Ryder, it's like a decent movie, but like one of her like quirky attribute is that she loves appetizers. And I'm like totally with her on that.
Me too. I would rather have appetizers than sit down for a meal.
I like to go sometimes to restaurants and just order appetizers.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
it's like your own sort of tapas that you made.
Yes.
Yeah.
And when we have friends over, we tend to do that. Like I'll just fill the bar with appetizer options versus us sitting down for dinner. I think some of that is because I don't really love to cook. It's not a passion of mine. So I'm not good at it because I've never practiced it. So I'd rather put together some really cute finger foods.
Yeah.
Call it.
Yeah. Do you have any Christmas Eve traditions that you always do?
Christmas Eve. A lot of times we'll go to church on a Christmas Eve service. We've had lots of different things that we've done. Nothing specifically related to Christmas Eve. Sometimes the local theater will play reruns of Christmas movies. I think we might have done that on a Christmas Eve.
That's fun. Yeah.
And we always do a gingerbread house. I mean, my kids are 18 and 15 now, and they're boys. And like last year, I was like, sit down, you're going to do it. Like, I'm doing it. I don't care if you're in this house or near it on the holidays, you're doing it. And they're so good because they're like, Mom, let's do it, but it's all for me
cute.
now.
I love that. Yeah. What is on top of your tree? Do you have a star or an angel or what do you have on the top?
I have an angel. In fact, I have so many. Like, I don't know what happened. I don't know if I like hit a Target sale or what, but like when I went up the other year to get down the stuff for the tree, I had like 4 angels and I'm like, I only need one. I have one tree in my office and one in my living room, but I don't know how I got 4 angels, but it's lots of them. So we can switch them out midway.
That's cute. All right. Last question. What's the best part of Christmas for you?
It's got to be just doing the family stuff, which, like I said, it gets harder as the kids get older. And it's going to look different as they grow and, start bringing over their significant others and things. But it's always been just those moments of doing things together. I mean, I always used to have game nights and I would go to the Dollar Tree and buy little gift bags and put things in them. And we would do all these little holiday themed games. And then the winner would pick a prize or whatever. And we always did those sort of family time activities. And now, like I said, 2 boys, 18 and 14 or 15, it's very difficult I mean, my youngest is getting a car soon, so I'm like, once they have cars, it's just tough. But
Yeah.
but luckily my boys are still, I mean, they're very sweet, thoughtful boys. So even if they aren't totally excited about it, they'll still do it. And I tell them, I'm like, when you're 45, you'll look back and be glad you did it.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, that's fun. Yeah. It is true though that Christmas is way more fun with little kids.
Yeah, I mean,
It
it sort
really
of
is.
brings it's full circle because it brings that magic back for you
Yeah.
because you were
Right.
a child, and so and we do all. I mean, we still will go on like a tacky light tour where we'll map it all out, bring snacks, blankets, and we do the
That's
whole
fun.
thing, put on the Christmas music, and that kind of thing. And as they get older, that's what I tell them. I'm like, just keep doing it. And eventually you'll look back on it and be glad that you did it, you know.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. Well, very good. You did it. Answered all the questions. Thank you so much for coming on talk with us. This was a lot of fun, and especially a deep dive into Harpeth Road. I thought that was very interesting for me, and I know will be for the listeners. So we'll put a link down to all that information and a link to get the book, The Noel Bridge. If they can check that out, and if people want to follow you and Harpeth Road on social media, how do they do that?
Harpeth Road is pretty easy. It's at Harpeth, Harpeth Road, Road, all one word, Harpeth Road. It's at Harpeth Road, and we're on everywhere, anywhere, any social media. That's like your basic social medias. And then on Facebook, I am Jenny Hale author, and then everywhere else, Instagram, TikTok, where else? X, I'm at J Hale author.
Great. Well, I'll have all that information in the description. So thanks so much for joining us and hope you have a very Merry Christmas.
Awesome. Thank you. It's been so much fun.
We'd like to thank Jenny for coming on the podcast. This was so much fun to not only hear about her new book and her writing, but also to dive into Harpeth Road and everything they're doing there. I think that's just really cool and interesting. So let us know what you think about all the different things we talked about in the comment section or on Twitter. And you can find me at Rachel's Reviews, all of our social media, iTunes, YouTube, and on Goodreads. And make sure you're following the podcast, Hallmarkies Pod, Hallmarkies Podcast, all of our social media. And if you are listening on iTunes, please leave your ratings and reviews. Really, really appreciate that. And if you are watching on YouTube, please give the video a thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel. We appreciate that so much. We also have our Patreon group, which is the best way you can support us and everything we're doing. And you get tons of cool perks, including having writers, a lot of writers for watch-alongs and other cool experiences, Q&As, things like that. So definitely please check out the Patreon. And then we have the merch store where you get tons of fun designs and all kinds of products, not just shirts, but phone cases, everything's like that. And we have some new holiday movie themed designs. So you definitely want to check that out. And thanks so much again to Jenny, and we'll talk to y'all later. Bye.